Today I'm going to show you how to track forms in Google Analytics if you use the Kadence Blocks Form Builder. Stay tuned. Let's get started. In this tutorial, the only tool you are going to need by necessity to track your forms submissions in Google Analytics is going to be Google Tag Manager. If you don't have that installed, this tutorial is not going to work for you. So the first thing that you will have to do when you are going to set up this trigger is go to triggers in a Google Tag Manager, and you are going to select new. You'll hit trigger configuration. You will select element visibility. Under selection method, you will select CSS selector. One thing that we will need is what is the CSS code on the website that is firing once you submit your form. In this case, we have our form embedded in a pop-up through the Kadence pop-up builder. So I will just fill out my information, and I am going to debug this through Chrome to see what is the CSS that is spit out once I submit the form. You can see my form was submitted successfully. So I will right click if I'm using Google Chrome, and I would select inspect. I would click here, and then I want to inspect the message. In this case, you can see my div class says Kadence blocks form message space Kadence blocks form success. So I will have to just copy this, go back to Google Tag Manager, select Elementor selector, paste that code in there. One thing to note is when you do paste it, that space that you see between form message and the submit success, you'll have to add a period. If not, this is not going to work. The last step that you just need to do is select observe DOM changes. Usually I would like to name my triggers what it's going to trigger. In this case, I am going to say form submit. And then I'm just going to save that. As you can see, I have already created my version previous to this tutorial, and it's exactly the same way. Now the next thing you are going to have to do is build a tag. In this case, we have already built a tag for our form submitted here. And what's triggering this tag is that variable or trigger, that we just created, which is a form submit success. It's really easy to create a new tag. All you have to select is new. Select tag. In this case, because we're using the old Google Analytics for this tutorial, we are going to select Google Analytics Universal Analytics. Under track type, what we want to track is an event. In this case, your category, you can name it whatever you want. I will name it form submit. The other thing I'd like to add is where my form was submitted. In this case, I want to capture the page URL. And lastly, I want to see who or what page users were visiting prior to filling out the form. I select my referrer. I select my Google Analytics settings, which I have already saved here. I select my trigger. In this case, you can see my form submit success demo. Lastly, I want to name what this is. I like to start with GA, so it stands for Google Analytics, event, because I want to know that I am firing this on an event. And then I name what it is. Form submit. I save this. I would want to hit preview in order to preview it, but because I know it's going to work already, I'm just going to skip that. And then I hit submit. When I hit submit, it tells you the version name and version description. Usually what I like to add here is a high-level note for myself to see what I created. In this case, I'm just going to create GA event form submit. So if I ever break my site, I can just go back and revert to the previous container that everything worked on. I would hit publish. In this case, I'm not going to publish just because this is a demo. The last step I want to do is go to my Google Analytics. Under goals, I would say create a new goal. I'm going to say form submit. You can name it whatever you want. We would select event because that is what we are tracking, as you recall. Here is the only field you have to fill out. So under category, we would go back to our event form submitted. And we would want to take this category, form submit. We would copy that. We would paste it here. If this goal was already active, we would have seen 8% conversion, 10% conversion. In this case, it's perfectly normal to see 0. If you wanted to add a monetary value, say, oh, every time somebody submits a form, it's $100 for me, you can just do that here. And you could say $100. In this case, we don't have that. And we would hit save. Once that's done, in order to track your forms, you would go to Acquisition tab, All Traffic, Source and Medium. As you can see, we had just installed this in this website's Google Analytics. You can see there was already 2 forms submitted, and that's it. That's how you would track your Kadence forms in Google Analytics.